"Your son is going to die today," the ragged girl declared during the birthday party. Seconds later, the cake explodes, and everyone is in shock. Comment giving a rating from 0 to 10 for my story. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The party room of the luxury condo building in downtown Manhattan was filled with kids running and screaming. Colorful balloons decorated every corner, and the smell of sweets hung in the air. The 30-year-old businessman watched his son, Ethan, blow out the candles on his 5th birthday cake, surrounded by friends from his private school. Beside him, Sarah smiled radiantly, adjusting the light blue dress she had chosen especially for the occasion. The man had built his fortune investing in stocks on Wall Street and founding a construction company that had become one of the most respected in the city. His net worth in dollars grew every month, allowing the family to live in the penthouse apartment overlooking the entire metropolis. Business was booming, dividends arrived regularly, and he kept part of his wealth in diversified investments. "Daddy, can I open the presents now?" asked Ethan, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he looked at the table filled with boxes wrapped in colorful paper. "Of course, champ, but first let's sing Happy Birthday properly," replied his father, signaling for Sarah to bring the superhero-themed decorated cake. It was at that moment that a small figure appeared at the door of the hall. A 4-year-old girl, so thin and fragile she looked barely 2, wearing dirty and torn clothes. Her disheveled hair framed a face marked by hunger, and her bare feet left marks on the imported marble floor. Silence filled the room. The other children stopped playing, the parents exchanged uncomfortable glances, and the 2 building security guards moved towards the girl. "How did this child get in here?" muttered one of the invited mothers, pulling her own child closer. The girl looked directly at the businessman, her big, dark eyes fixed on him with a disturbing intensity. Then, with a clear voice that cut through the silence like a knife, she shouted, "Your son is going to die today!" Horror spread through the hall. Sarah let out a muffled scream, some children started crying, and the guards rushed to remove the girl from the premises, but she kept shouting, fighting against the men who were trying to carry her away. "Wait," said the businessman, raising his hand. Something in the child's desperate expression made him hesitate. "What do you mean by that?" The girl stopped struggling and looked at him urgently. "The cake! There's something in the cake. I saw a man putting it there." Everyone turned to the table where Sarah was about to cut the dessert. The businessman felt a chill run down his spine. He approached the table carefully, examining the decorated cake that had cost a fortune at the best bakery in the area. "This is ridiculous," said Sarah, her voice trembling. "We're not going to listen to a street kid who clearly has mental problems." But the man had already noticed something strange. A small mark at the base of the cake, as if someone had made a small hole and then covered it with frosting. He took a knife and carefully cut into that spot. The explosion was small, but frightening. Firecrackers shot out from inside the cake, creating lights and crackling sounds that made all the children scream and run into their parents' arms. There were no injuries, but the scare was immense. The businessman looked at the girl, who was now being restrained by only one of the guards. "How did you know?" "I saw the man at the bakery," she replied, breathing heavily. "He always chases me away when I ask for food. Today I saw him putting things inside the cake and saying it would ruin the party." "What man? What did he look like?" The girl described a tall man with a dark beard, wearing a grey suit and sunglasses. The businessman's heart froze. It was the perfect description of Peter, his partner in the construction company. "Her name is Lily," said the girl when asked. "I live with my grandma in the squat nearby. She's very sick." Sarah approached her husband, whispering, "We can't trust her. This could be a scam, an attempt to extort us." But the businessman was thinking about the last few weeks. Peter had been acting strange, nervous, holding secret meetings and questioning decisions he had previously supported. They had argued about the direction of the company, and his partner seemed worried about financial matters that he refused to detail. "Why did you help us?" he asked the girl. Lily lowered her eyes. "Because I saw you giving money to the janitor the other day. My grandma said good people exist. They're just hard to find." The businessman remembered the episode. He had given extra money to the building's cleaning employee because he had learned that he had a sick child, a simple gesture that apparently had not gone unnoticed. "Get her out of here," said Sarah, still shaken. "The party's ruined." But Ethan, who had watched everything with childish curiosity, approached Lily. "You saved my party," he said, offering her a piece of leftover cake. "Do you want to be my friend?" Lily looked at the boy, then at the cake, and finally at the businessman. There was something in her eyes that he couldn't quite define, a mixture of hope and distrust, as if she were used to expecting the worst from people. "I can't stay," she said, backing away. "My grandma needs me." And before anyone could stop her, Lily ran out of the hall, her bare feet making noise in the marble corridor until she disappeared into the elevator. The businessman stood still, watching the spot where she had been. Something had changed that afternoon, something he didn't yet fully understand. The party continued, but without the same atmosphere as before. The children played more quietly, the parents talked in whispers, and Sarah couldn't hide her irritation. That night, after all the guests had left, and Ethan had fallen asleep exhausted among his new toys, the businessman stood on the balcony looking at the illuminated city. His wealth had given him everything he thought he wanted: the luxurious apartment, the imported cars, the best schools for his son. But none of that had prepared him for what had happened that afternoon. He picked up his cell phone and called Peter. His partner answered on the third ring, his sleepy voice suggesting he was asleep. "Peter, we need to talk tomorrow, it's urgent." "About what?" "Is everything okay?" "About Ethan's party cake." The silence on the other end of the line was too long to be natural. When Peter finally answered, his voice was different, more tense. "I don't know what you're talking about. What's this cake story?" "We'll see each other tomorrow morning at the office," the businessman said, ending the call. As he prepared to sleep, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl who had appeared out of nowhere to warn them about the danger. Lily, a 4-year-old child living in precarious conditions, but who had shown a courage that few adults would have. Sarah was already in bed, pretending to sleep, but he knew she was as disturbed as he was. The discovery of the firecrackers in the cake had shaken the sense of security that money had always provided them. Outside, the city continued to pulsate with its millions of inhabitants, its illuminated skyscrapers, and its constant flow of capital. But something had changed forever in that penthouse. A street child had entered their lives and revealed that not all the wealth in the world could protect them from certain threats. The construction company's office was on the 20th floor of a commercial building in Manhattan's financial district. The businessman arrived 2 hours earlier than usual, still disturbed by the events of Ethan's party. He sat behind the imported mahogany desk and tried to organize his thoughts, but the image of Lily kept coming back to his mind. Peter arrived punctually at 8 in the morning, as he always did. He entered the room in his impeccable suit and rehearsed smile, but the businessman immediately noticed the nervousness in his partner's movements. "Good morning," said Peter, sitting in the chair in front of the desk. "About this cake story yesterday. It was just an accident, wasn't it? Bakeries sometimes make mistakes." "Mistakes?" The businessman leaned forward. "Peter, there were firecrackers inside the cake. That doesn't happen by accident." His partner shifted in his chair, avoiding direct eye contact. "Maybe someone from the bakery played a bad joke. You know how those young employees are. A 4-year-old child saw you putting something in the cake." Peter was silent for a few seconds, then laughed forcedly. "A street kid? Seriously? You're going to believe a girl who probably has mental problems. She described you perfectly. Height, beard, glasses, grey suit. Half the men in New York fit that description," Peter replied. but his hands were trembling slightly. "Look, I know you've been stressed about the investments and market pressure, but you can't let paranoia affect our business." The businessman studied his partner's face. He had known Peter for 8 years, since they founded the construction company together. They had built an empire based on mutual trust and shared vision. Annual turnover reached millions. Their assets included valuable land throughout the city, and their customer portfolio was enviable. "I need to know the truth, Peter. Our partnership is worth too much to be destroyed by misunderstandings." Peter stood up abruptly. "There's nothing to know. You're creating problems where they don't exist. We have a meeting with investors on Thursday about the mall project. That's what we should be focusing on." After Peter left the room, the businessman was left alone with his doubts. He opened his computer and began reviewing the financial reports for the last few months. Something he hadn't noticed before caught his attention. Peter had made several unauthorized withdrawals from the company account, always in small amounts that would go unnoticed in a superficial analysis. The phone rang, interrupting his investigations. It was Sarah. "That girl is down here in front of the building," she said, her irritation clear in her voice. "The doorman called me. She's asking to talk to you." The businessman went down immediately. He found Lily sitting on the sidewalk in front of the building, still wearing the same dirty clothes as the day before. Upon seeing him, she stood up quickly. "The man with the beard is doing bad things," she said without preamble. "I saw him talking to other strange men near your company. They were talking about money and about you." "What kind of talk?" "I didn't understand everything, but they laughed when the man with the beard said you would soon lose everything." The businessman's heart raced. "Where was this?" "At the coffee shop on the corner. They didn't see me because I was behind the dumpster." Lily then recounted that she had spent the night watching the surroundings of the construction company's building, waiting to see him arrive. She described the men Peter had met with, 2 suspicious-looking individuals who seemed more interested in intimidating than doing legitimate business. "Why are you helping me?" asked the businessman. "Because my grandma always said that when someone helps others, life returns the favor. You helped the janitor, so I'm helping you." At that moment, a dark van stopped in front of the building. Peter got out of the vehicle, accompanied by 2 men who matched Lily's description exactly. The businessman felt a chill as he realized that the girl was right again. "Get out of here now," he said to Lily. "It might be dangerous." But Lily had already retreated behind a parked car, observing the movements attentively. Peter and the 2 men entered the building, clearly heading to the construction company's office. The businessman went up quickly, reaching the company floor a few minutes after them. He found Peter in his private office, alone, talking on the phone. The other men were nowhere in sight. "I need to talk to you now," he said, entering without knocking. Peter hung up the phone hurriedly. "I'm busy with urgent matters regarding the mall construction." "What men were those who came up with you?" "Investors interested in the project. Nothing you should worry about." But the businessman noticed that Peter was sweating excessively, and his hands were trembling as he handled the papers on the desk. Something was definitely wrong. That afternoon, after Peter left early claiming family commitments, the businessman decided to investigate further. He called Robert, his trusted accountant, to review all the company's financial transactions over the past 6 months. "There's something strange here," said Robert, after 2 hours of analysis. "Peter has been making regular withdrawals that don't correspond to any approved project. Adding it all up, it's almost $500,000. The businessman felt the world spin. $500,000 was a significant amount, even for a company their size. If Peter was embezzling money, that would explain his nervous behavior and the need for meetings with suspicious individuals. "There's more," continued Robert. "I received a strange call this morning. Someone asking about the company's financial situation, wanting to know if you have any debts or cash flow problems." "Who was it?" "They said they were from a bank, but when I called back to confirm, they told me they didn't have any employees with that name. The businessman understood that he was being investigated, probably as part of a larger plan. Peter wasn't just stealing money from the company, he was preparing something more elaborate. As he left the office that night, he found Lily again on the sidewalk. This time she seemed more agitated. "They're back," she said. "The strange men. They've been at the coffee shop on the corner for 2 hours, waiting for something." The businessman looked in the direction she indicated. Through the windows of the coffee shop, he could see 2 men sitting at the same table, watching the entrance to his building. "Lily, where are you sleeping?" "At the squat, but my grandma is very sick. She can't get out of bed anymore." "Come with me. I'll take you home." During the drive to the squat, Lily told more details about what she had observed. Peter was clearly in serious financial trouble, possibly involved with loan sharks or other dangerous creditors. The men accompanying him weren't investors, they were collectors. The squat was only a mile from the luxury condo building where the businessman lived, but it seemed like a completely different world. Wooden and tarpaulin shacks were crammed onto a vacant lot without basic sanitation or regular electricity. Lily led him to one of the smaller shacks, where an elderly woman lay on a mattress on the floor. "This is my grandma," Lily said tenderly. The woman opened her eyes with difficulty. She was clearly very ill, with a high fever and labored breathing. The businessman introduced himself and explained how Lily had saved his family. "She's always been special," the grandma whispered. "She can see things that others can't see. She protects people even when they don't deserve it." The businessman left money for medication and promised to return the next day. On the way back home, he couldn't stop thinking about the difference between the 2 worlds, his luxurious penthouse and the precarious shack where Lily cared for her sick grandma. At home, Sarah was waiting for him with a worried expression. "Peter called," she said. "He wanted to know if you had mentioned anything about problems at the company. He said he was getting strange calls from people asking about your financial situation." The businessman realized that the situation was escalating rapidly. Peter wasn't just stealing money, he was preparing a coup that could completely destroy the company they had built together over 8 years. That night, while Sarah and Ethan slept, he stood on the balcony looking at the city. Somewhere down there, Lily was sleeping in a wooden shack, caring for a dying grandma. And elsewhere, Peter was planning something that could ruin everything he had worked to build. His net worth, his investments, his gold and stock holdings, none of that would matter if Peter managed to execute his plans. But perhaps, with the unlikely help of a 4-year-old girl, he could discover the truth before it was too late. The next 2 weeks brought a series of events that confirmed the businessman's worst fears. Peter intensified his suspicious activities, always accompanied by the same intimidating-looking men. Lily continued to appear regularly, bringing information that proved frighteningly accurate. On Monday morning, the businessman received a call that chilled him to the bone. It was from Mike Thompson, CEO of one of the largest developers in the city and one of the construction company's most important clients. "I need to cancel the residential project contract," Mike said bluntly. "I received worrying information about your company's financial situation." "What kind of information?" "Someone approached me yesterday, showing documents suggesting serious cash flow problems and accounting irregularities. I can't risk my investments." The businessman felt the ground open beneath his feet. Mike's project represented 20% of the company's annual turnover. Losing that contract would be devastating to their finances. "Mike, I can assure you that our company is in perfect financial order. These documents must be false." "Maybe, but I can't take the risk. I'm sorry." After hanging up, the businessman immediately called Robert, the accountant. "I need you to investigate who is spreading false information about our company." "I'm already on it," Robert replied. "I've received 3 calls today from clients questioning our situation. Someone is conducting a systematic campaign to harm us." That afternoon, Lily appeared at the office more agitated than usual. The doorman, who'd become accustomed to her visits, allowed her to go straight up. "I saw the man with the beard handing papers to a man in a blue suit," she said, as soon as she entered the room. "They were in the restaurant at the big hotel, the one with the gold lights." The businessman knew exactly which hotel she was describing. It was the place where the city's big deals were usually closed, frequented by New York's business elite. "Were you able to hear anything?" "The man in the blue suit said he was going to talk to other businessmen about you." The man with the beard laughed and said, "You would soon have to sell everything cheap." The confirmation that Peter was actively sabotaging the company left the businessman furious, but also desperate. His partner knew all the clients, had access to confidential information, and knew exactly how to hurt the business. Sarah noticed her husband's growing tension. During dinner, she tried to address the issue. "Maybe you should confront Peter directly," she suggested. 8 years of partnership are worth more than any misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding, Sarah. He's deliberately destroying our company." "But why? You built all this together." "He also loses if the company goes bankrupt." Ethan, who was playing with his toys in the corner of the room, looked at his parents. "Daddy, is Lily coming back?" "She's my friend." Sarah sighed. "Ethan, you can't get attached to a street kid. She's not part of our life." "But she saved my party," protested the boy. That night, the businessman couldn't sleep. He stayed in his home office, analyzing contracts and documents, trying to understand the extent of the damage. 3 major clients had already cancelled projects, and 2 others were reassessing their partnerships. The next morning, even worse news awaited him. Mr. Edward Davis, the lawyer who handled all the company's contracts, called urgently. "There's a serious problem," said Edward. "Someone has submitted documents to the district attorney alleging that your company is involved in a scheme to inflate the costs of public works projects." The businessman was silent, processing the information. "What documents?" "Forged contracts, altered invoices, correspondence allegedly showing you authorizing illegal practices. It's obviously a hoax, but until we prove it, your company will be under investigation." "Who submitted these documents?" "A lawyer named Mr. Henry Matthews. I've never heard of him before." The businessman noted the name and promised to investigate. It was clear that Peter had escalated his actions, now involving the judicial system to harm him. Lily appeared at the office at lunchtime, as if she sensed that he needed her information. "I saw the man with the beard, with a man wearing round glasses," she reported. "They were in the building where the lawyers are, the one with the flags in front." "The courthouse?" "I think so. They laughed a lot, and the man with the beard said that now you would have to do what he wanted." The businessman realized that Peter was using Mr. Henry Matthews to present false documents against him. The strategy was clear: destroy his professional reputation and force him to accept unfavorable conditions or even sell his stake in the company. That afternoon, he made a risky decision. He hired a private investigator to follow Peter and document all his activities. If it was going to be a war, he needed ammunition. The investigator, a former cop named Mark, began work immediately. In 2 days, he already had valuable information. "Your partner is in debt to loan sharks," Mark reported. "He owes at least $2 million. The men accompanying him are debt collectors, specializing in recovering debts through unconventional means." $2 million? The businessman was shocked. It was much more than Peter could have stolen from the company. "It seems he suffered significant losses in risky investments, cryptocurrencies, speculative stocks, even sports betting. When he started losing, he tried to recover by making even bigger bets." The picture was becoming clear. Peter had gotten into huge debts and now desperately needed money. The only way to get such a large amount would be to force the sale of the construction company or take full control over the company's assets. "There's more," Mark continued. "I found out that Mr. Henry Matthews has a history of dubious cases. He's already been investigated by the Bar Association for fabricating evidence." The businessman finally understood Peter's complete strategy. First, ruin his reputation with clients to reduce the value of the company. Then, use false lawsuits to force him to accept a quick and cheap sale. With the company devalued and him desperate, Peter could buy his stake for a fraction of the real value and then sell everything to pay off his debts. But there was one problem that Peter hadn't considered. Lily. The girl continued to be his eyes and ears on the streets. That afternoon, she brought information that would change everything. "The man with the beard is meeting someone very important tomorrow," she said. "I heard him talking on the phone about a judge. He said the judge was going to sign some papers." The businessman's heart raced. If Peter was trying to bribe a judge to speed up the proceedings against him, that was evidence of a crime that could be used to reverse the whole situation. "Lily, can you show me where this meeting is going to be?" "I can, but it's dangerous." The man with the beard said that if anyone found out, it would be very bad. That night, the businessman called Mark and explained the situation. They agreed to follow Peter the next day and try to document any attempted bribery. Sarah was increasingly concerned about her husband's emotional state. "You're obsessed with this situation," she said. "Maybe it's time to accept that the partnership with Peter is over and move on." "I can't let him steal 8 years of my work," replied the businessman. "This company is everything I've built. It's Ethan's future. What if you're wrong? What if in the end you find out that you're chasing ghosts?" But the businessman knew he wasn't wrong. Peter had crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. Tomorrow he would find out how far his former partner was willing to go to get what he wanted. Lily appeared again in the late afternoon, bringing her grandma to meet the businessman. The elderly woman was visibly weaker, but insisted on coming. "I want to thank you personally for your kindness," the grandma said in a weak voice. "Lily told me everything you've done for us." The businessman felt ashamed. He had given some money for medication, but it was nothing compared to what Lily was doing for him. "She has a special gift," continued the grandma. "She's always been able to see what others don't see. Protect her because she's protecting you." That night, while Ethan slept and Sarah watched television, the businessman stood on the balcony thinking about the words of Lily's grandma. A 4-year-old girl was risking her safety to help him, while a man he considered a friend was trying to destroy him. Tomorrow would be the decisive day. Either he would get enough evidence to expose Peter, or he would lose everything he had built over years of hard work and careful investments. The day dawned cloudy over New York, as if the city itself sensed that something important was about to happen. The businessman woke up before the alarm, his stomach churning with anxiety. Today he would find out if he could save everything he had built, or if he would lose his company to Peter's machinations. Lily appeared at the building at 7 in the morning, earlier than usual. She was accompanied by her grandma, who seemed even more fragile than the day before, but had insisted on coming. "The meeting is at 10 in the morning," said Lily. "In the restaurant at the hotel with the big columns, the one near Central Park." The businessman knew the place. It was one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, frequented by politicians, judges, and influential businessmen. The perfect location for a discreet meeting. Mark, the investigator, arrived a few minutes later with discreet recording equipment. "If we get evidence of attempted bribery, Peter is finished," he said. The plan was simple. Lily would guide them to the location. Mark would position himself strategically to record the conversation, and the businessman would be ready to intervene if necessary. They arrived at the hotel at 9:30. Lily pointed to a reserved table in the corner of the restaurant with a privileged view of Central Park. Peter was already there, nervous, constantly fidgeting with his cell phone. At 10 o'clock sharp, a man of approximately 60 years approached the table. The businessman recognized him immediately. It was Mr. Charles Evans, one of the most respected judges of the New York Supreme Court. "I can't believe Peter has the nerve to try to bribe a judge of this caliber," Mark muttered, positioning the recording equipment. But something was wrong. The conversation between Peter and the judge seemed too friendly, too familiar. It didn't have the tension that one would expect from an attempted bribe. Lily, who was observing from afar, hidden behind a column, ran to them with wide eyes. "It's not what we thought," she whispered. "They're laughing. The important man is happy." The businessman focused on the table where Peter and Mr. Evans were talking. Through Mark's equipment, they were able to capture fragments of the conversation. "Thank you for accepting the invitation, Uncle Charlie," Peter was saying. "I know you're busy." "Uncle Charlie." The businessman was confused. The revelation was like a punch to the stomach. Mr. Charles Evans wasn't just an influential judge, he was Peter's uncle. This explained how his former partner had managed to get the false lawsuits accepted so quickly by the judicial system. "His family has connections that go far beyond what we imagined," said Mark, continuing to record. At the table, Peter was showing documents to his uncle. "I just need a few more weeks," he was saying. "With these proceedings pending, he will be forced to sell his share for any price." "Peter, are you sure this is the right path?" asked Mr. Evans. "This man has been your partner for 8 years. He never truly respected me. He always thought he was superior because he had more initial money to invest. Now it's my turn to have control." The businessman realized that he had completely underestimated the situation. It wasn't just about debts with loan sharks. Peter harbored a deep resentment that had been accumulating for years. "And after I take full control of the company," Peter continued, "I can sell everything and pay off my debts. Maybe there will even be some money left over to invest in Bitcoin again." Mr. Evans sighed. "You promised you would stop with these risky investments." "Just one last play, Uncle. This time it will work." The conversation revealed that Peter wasn't just trying to save himself from debt. He was planning to repeat the same mistakes that led him to his current situation. Lily, who continued observing, suddenly became agitated. "More men are coming," she whispered. "The same strange men from before." 2 intimidating-looking men entered the restaurant and headed to Peter's table. Mr. Evans became visibly uncomfortable with their presence. "Your deadline is tomorrow," said one of the men sitting down without invitation. "Our boss is losing patience." Peter paled. "I just need a few more days. The plan is working." "We don't care about the plan. We want our money." Mr. Evans stood up, clearly disturbed. "Peter, I can't get involved in this. You promised that your debts were with traditional banks." "Uncle Charlie, please. Just one more week." "I'm sorry, but I can't help you anymore. And I'm going to ask to suspend the proceedings you requested." Peter panicked. "You can't do that. Without those proceedings, I have no way to pressure my partner." "You should have thought about that before getting involved with these kinds of people," replied Mr. Evans, leaving the restaurant. The 2 loan sharks were left alone with Peter, who was visibly desperate. The conversation became more tense, with veiled threats about the consequences of not paying the debt. The businessman realized that it was time to act. He had enough recordings to prove that Peter had used family influence to create false proceedings against him. In addition, the threats from the loan sharks could be used to demonstrate that his former partner was under duress. But Lily stopped him. "Wait," she said. "There's more." Peter was on the phone, clearly desperate. "Mr. Matthews, I need to speed everything up. It has to be today. I can't wait any longer." "He's trying to force some judicial decision today," Mark murmured. The businessman made a decision. He came out of his hiding place and walked directly to the table where Peter was. "Hello, Peter," he said, sitting down in the chair that Mr. Evans had left vacant. Peter turned white as a sheet. The loan sharks looked at the businessman with suspicion. "I heard the whole conversation," continued the businessman, showing the recorder that Mark had given him. "False proceedings, attempted use of family influence, involvement with loan sharks. Very interesting." "You don't understand," Peter stammered. "I can explain everything." "There's nothing to explain." I have enough recordings to prove that you falsified evidence against me." The loan shark stood up, clearly annoyed by the situation. "We don't like complications," said one of them. "There will be no complications," replied the businessman calmly. "In fact, maybe we can reach an agreement that benefits everyone." Peter looked at him with despair and a hint of hope. "I'm going to buy your share of the company for the fair market value," said the businessman. "You pay off your debts and get out of my life forever." "But why?" asked Peter, confused. "Because despite everything you've done, I don't want to see you hurt, and mainly because a 4-year-old girl taught me that helping others, even when they don't deserve it, is the right thing to do." The loan sharks agreed to the arrangement as long as they received the money on the same day. Peter signed the papers selling his share of the company without questioning, relieved to escape the consequences of his actions. 2 weeks later, life had returned to a new normal. The businessman was now the sole owner of the construction company. All the false proceedings had been dismissed, and the clients who had left were gradually returning. Lily appeared at the office on a sunny afternoon, but this time she was different. Clean, with new clothes, hair combed. "My grandma got better," she said, beaming. "The doctor said the medicine you gave worked." The businessman smiled. He had secretly paid for the best medical treatment available for Lily's grandma, but he didn't expect her to find out. "And there's a surprise," continued Lily. "My grandma wants to talk to you." When they arrived at the squat, they found Lily's grandma sitting in front of the shack, much stronger and more alert than before. "I want to tell you the truth about Lily," said the old woman. "She's not my biological granddaughter. I found her abandoned 2 years ago when she was only 2 years old. But from the first day I realized that she was special." The revelation explained Lily's exceptional maturity and intuition. "She never had a real family," continued the grandma, "and you were the first person who treated her with genuine kindness." That night, the businessman talked to Sarah about Lily. To his surprise, his wife had been watching the girl during all the visits to the office. "Maybe it's time to return the help she gave us," said Sarah. "Ethan is always asking when he's going to see her again." 3 months later, Lily was living with them. The adoption process had been simpler than they expected, especially with the grandma supporting the decision and acknowledging that she was unable to properly care for a 4-year-old child. Ethan was ecstatic to have a sister. Lily quickly adapted to her new life, but never lost her special ability to observe and protect the people she loved. The construction company prospered under the businessman's sole leadership. Without the complications caused by Peter, the company grew rapidly, expanding its investments and diversifying its holdings. Lily began attending the same private school as Ethan. Her grades were exceptional, and the teachers commented on her exceptional maturity and empathy. A year later, on Ethan's 6th birthday, the family organized a party in the same hall where it had all begun. This time, Lily was sitting next to Ethan at the head table, wearing a blue dress that Sarah had chosen especially for her. When it was time to cut the cake, Lily stood up and said loudly to all the guests, "This cake is safe. I checked it personally." Everyone laughed, but the businessman and Sarah knew it wasn't just a joke. Lily had actually insisted on accompanying the baker during the entire preparation of the cake. That night, while the children slept exhausted after the party, the businessman and Sarah talked on the balcony. "Do you regret anything?" asked Sarah. "Only that I didn't act sooner to help Lily," he replied. "She saved our family from a tragedy, and we almost missed the chance to save her too. And Peter chose his path. I heard he got a job as a real estate salesman. Maybe the experience taught him something about honesty." Lily, who should have been sleeping, appeared on the balcony in her pajamas. "I can't sleep," she said, snuggling between the two on the sofa. "Nightmare?" asked Sarah. "No, dream too good. I dreamed we were a real family forever." The businessman hugged Lily. "It's not a dream, little one. It's real." And for the first time in her life, Lily fell asleep completely safe, knowing that she would never be alone again. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story, giving a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.